At this point in my life, people often come to me with the same questions. They expect me to talk about money, investing, or how to live securely into old age. The truth is, almost everyone who reaches my age regrets not a lack of money, but a late realization of what's truly important. When I was younger, I believed money was the foundation of life. I thought as long as I worked hard and ensured financial security, I was doing the right thing. I put off many things in the name of responsibility. I rarely stopped to truly be present because I always felt there were more important things to do. I missed many conversations. I declined many invitations to chat because I was tired. I dismissed many small moments as unimportant because they yielded no results. In my mind, everything could be replaced later, once my life was more stable. The problem is, life doesn't work that way. Now, when my body is no longer strong and the days feel long, money has ceased to be a central concern. I don't wake up thinking about accounts or accomplishments. Instead, I think about the things I once neglected. The house is still standing, all the basic necessities are still there, but there's something missing that can't be bought. At this age, people aren't looking for extra money. They're looking for presence. Someone who's willing to show up without a reason. Someone who's willing to sit for a while, chat about trivial matters, or even just be quiet with you. Not to discuss problems, not to offer solutions, but simply to be there. I used to be busy. Now I have time. Ironically, that time only feels precious when no one else wants to fill it. Many people my age experience the same thing. They don't talk about careers or possessions. They talk about people they no longer have the chance to see, conversations postponed, and words that should have been said but never were. I've noticed a recurring pattern. The closer a person gets to the end of their life, the more it becomes clear that money is just a tool, not an end in itself. What they truly seek is the feeling of still being important to others, still being remembered, still being considered. If you're still in the middle of your life now, I'm not giving you advice. I'm simply saying what I and many others have realized too late. Don't trade all your relationships for the promise of a later time, because eventually that later time comes, and often when it's too late. At the end of life, money doesn't accompany anyone. All they seek is another human being who still cares. I wish I'd understood this sooner. Now, the only thing I can do is tell you this. Now that I've reached this age, I've started to notice little things I never thought about before. The way people sit when they talk, the way they pause when they don't know what to say. Simple things like that once seemed insignificant, but now they feel precious, because fewer and fewer people are willing to be truly present without rushing. I remember back then, almost every conversation had a purpose. Unless it was about work, plans, or problems, I rarely sat down to just listen. Even when I was with those closest to me, my mind was always elsewhere. I was physically present, but never truly present. Now that I'm older, I understand why that was a huge mistake. Because relationships aren't built on results, but on consistent presence, and that can't be accumulated all at once at the end of life. It must be built slowly, over time. Many people my age are starting to tell me the same story. They don't regret choosing the wrong job. They regret being too often absent from moments that should have been simple. They regret being too sure that time would always be there. I once knew someone who lived a very comfortable life. At the end of his life, he didn't talk about his house or possessions. He only talked about one thing: how he wished he could relive an ordinary afternoon, sitting with his family without thinking about anything. Not a big moment, not a significant event, just the togetherness he once took for granted. Things like that cross my mind often now, not big dramatic regrets, but a multitude of small ones. And that's precisely why they feel so heavy. Because everything seemed fixable once, but not anymore. At this point, I realized that life isn't about accumulating as many things as possible, but about who still wants to sit with us when we have nothing left to offer. Not money, not energy, not benefits. Just being there. If I'm honest, loneliness doesn't come from being alone. Loneliness comes from too often choosing other things over people. And those choices rarely felt wrong when they were made, but they feel decidedly wrong when it's all over. I'm not saying that working hard is wrong. I'm just saying that many people, including me, have misplaced priorities. We think relationships can come later, but it's those relationships that determine how the end of life feels. I understand one thing very clearly now. At the end of life, what's sought isn't something new, but something that was often neglected in the past. Presence, attention, a sense of connection with others. If there's one thing I want to say before it's all over, it's not about how to be successful. It's about how to not feel alone when life starts to slow down. Don't wait until everything is over to be there for others, because life rarely gives you a second chance. That's all I want to say. Not because I know better, but because I've reached a point where many people wish they could go back to the simple things they once considered unimportant. There's a phase in life that people rarely talk about, the moment when all the accomplishments stop feeling exciting, not because they're hated, but because my body and mind begin to seek other things. At that point, I started revisiting old memories, not to reminisce, but to understand why some memories feel warm while others feel empty. The most powerful memories, it turns out, aren't about major successes. The most enduring are the moments when I truly connected with someone. A simple conversation, a short, unplanned trip, or a laugh that came out unintentionally. I never considered these things important when they happened. Only now do I understand their value. As I grew older, my circle of friends shrank. One by one, people left, whether due to distance, circumstance, or death. Each departure left a space that couldn't be replaced. That's when I realized that relationships aren't something you can postpone nurturing. If left too long, they weaken naturally. I also began to notice how people whose families still visited regularly looked different. Their faces were more alive. Their conversations were lighter. The presence of others gave them an energy that couldn't be explained with numbers or logic. It was something that only became apparent when it was almost gone. Ultimately, life simplifies itself. All goals, competition, and ambitions slowly fade. All that remains is a simple question: who's still around you, and who were you truly there for? The answer to that question determines how a person lives their final days. When I look back now, I don't count how much I've accumulated. I count how many relationships I've managed to maintain. And from that, I know for certain that what people seek most at the end of life isn't money, but rather a sense of connection that makes life feel whole.